Great. Well, hello, everybody. We're here to tell you about our South BD Hub project sponsored by the National Science Foundation. This is enhanced 3D mapping for habitat, biodiversity, and flood hazard assessments of coastal and wetland areas of the southern U.S. Our team is multi-institutional in many different departments. I'm at the University of South Florida. My name is Frank Mueller-Karger, and I am a co-PI with Tim Dixon, James Gibault, Mel Rogers, and we have several postdocs that are working with us, Matt McCarthy, Digna Rueda, Tyler Murray, also at the University of South Florida, and a PhD student, Luis Liscano Sandoval, is with us, who is going to present as well. We have several collaborators, Noel Gorelik from Google Earth Engine, and also Nicola Schmidt from the NOAA Office for Coastal Management, basically Digital Coast. So the reason that we want to do this is the southern coast of the US, basically the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, is home to a lot of people. Over 60 million people now live in this area, and the population is growing every year. It is an area of very highly sensitive environments, very valuable from a biodiversity point of view, from a mining point of view, just tremendously sensitive, also exposed to flooding due to a number of factors, including sea level rise and subsidence of the land. Storms really have been a problem in this area. And on the left-hand side here, you see the graphic of population increasing in this area with the number of hurricanes that cause over $10 billion or more in losses. And the number of hurricanes, especially in 2020, as you know, has been quite severe. We've had 8 hurricanes having landfall in 2020 alone. That's the bottom left-hand graph. So what we would like to do is to try new technologies to assess the types and extent of wetlands and developed areas in the southern US. And so this is the graphic here on the lower left-hand side, shows the coastal areas of the US, Gulf of Mexico. And the little blue squares are the footprints of images from a commercial series of satellites called Worldview from the company called Maxar. So we would like to know how vegetation types or types of developed land is related to topography, which areas are prone to flooding, and do major hurricanes affect different types of land cover in different ways. So again, what new technologies can we use to assist in these assessments? So there's the approach is multidisciplinary. We have groups that are looking at different types of technologies, and going from left to right is we're using very, very high spatial resolution satellite images that provide us a way to cover large pieces of ground. So we're using the Worldview satellites, and we have collected over 13,000 satellite images at 2-meter resolution each. And so we use those to estimate land cover types, and then we stitch them all together into a mosaic that covers this entire area at 2-meter resolution. Jim Gibault is going to talk to you about the LiDAR topography elevation model that they develop at the Hart Research Institute at Texas A&M in Corpus Christi. That again has been resampled to 2-meter resolution out of 100 or over 150 airborne LiDAR surveys. Tim Dixon and Mel Rogers at the University of South Florida use a drone to collect extremely high resolution from 1 to 4 centimeter resolution images of the ground. And these, by the drone flying around and they keeping track of the location of the drone relative to the landscape, they can reconstruct the 3-dimensional topography of the landscape at that type of very high spatial resolution. And we stitch all of this together with Google Earth Engine, which gives us the high-speed computing and data visualization capability. And this is where we are right now, is we're generating the products to serve to the public. So I'm going to pass this over to Luis Liscano, who's going to tell us about the land cover maps generated from the worldview images. Luis, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luis. I'm a PhD student at Frank's lab at University of South Florida. I helped to create this app in the Google Earth Engine for public use. The app allows to create land cover mosaics in the regions of the northern Gulf of Mexico and Florida. This app has available almost 13,000 processed images from WorldView 2 and 3 for the whole region and covers almost 9 years of observations from 2009 to 2018. Next slide. This is a quick demonstration of the app. In the app, you can select the county of interest. Also, you can select 2 periods to compare cover changes. And you can generate the mosaics using all the available classes or any of your interests. In this example, we can see the land cover changes for the Miami-Dade County between the period 2009 to 2013 and the period 2014 to 2018, and the respective number of images used to generate the mosaic. Next slide. The app has a basic and advanced interface. The one that I showed is the basic interface that allows to generate and visualize mosaics. In the other hand, the access to the advanced interface requires a Google Earth Engine account from the user, which is totally free. This enables 2 additional buttons for downloading mosaics in GOT format in full resolution and the calculation of the areas per class, as we can see here in this slide. The user doesn't need to know how to program in Google Earth Engine, but if they do know how to do it, they can use the entire collection of images for any analysis of their interests. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, this is Jim Jabot, and I'm at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, and I'm part of the Hart Research Institute, which is a marine science institute here at the university. Airborne topographic LiDAR combines pulsing lasers, GPS, and inertial measuring units to measure XYZ locations of the terrain from the air. And lasers pulse these days at rates of tens of thousands of times per second, resulting in measurement densities of tens of points per square meter on the ground. And the resulting point clouds are classified according to the target measured buildings, vegetation, the bare ground, and then they're processed into digital elevation models of surfaces. Next. LiDAR surveys are conducted for specific areas and often for particular purposes, such as measuring how protective dunes and beaches may be, for modeling floods and storm surge, or modeling the impacts of sea level rise, to name just a few of the purposes. And so, in other words, there's not an overall campaign that's repeated regularly by one source every year or every several years even. So for that reason, we have compiled 178 individual surveys to get an optimum 2-meter resolution topographic surface to match with the imagery, the worldview imagery that Frank spoke about. Next. And this is showing dozens of survey footprints from about a dozen different sources just for Texas. And on the right is a resulting 2-meter DEM that has a vertical accuracy of about 20 centimeters. And it's made up of seamless tiles. And this particular DEM represents the bare earth surface with buildings and vegetation removed. But it's an incredible view of the surface and the geomorphology of the coastal plain. This example being just in Texas. Next. This is an enlarged area of the central Texas coast, a place called Matagorda, Texas. And the map on the left is a LiDAR-derived bare earth DEM. And on the right, it's an all points surface DEM. And I think qualitatively, you can see differences there. On the right, there's a lot more clutter, particularly where there are trees and buildings. And on the left, it's a bit cleaner of a surface, so to speak, without the surface clutter. Of course, those points above the surface, vegetations, buildings, and all that's data too. It's not just noise, but it's very important in what the LiDAR data tells us of those features that are on the bare earth surface. And the type of habitat or geo-environment is strongly related to elevation along the coastal plain, particularly in the critical intertidal and adjacent upland areas that we focus on. And a difference of just 20 centimeters can shift the type of environment that you have. And therefore, we can use the DEM to further classify the imagery. And we also need the bare earth DEM to assess how habitats may be influenced by future flooding or changes in sea level. Next.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our structure from motion studies. So the LiDAR data and the worldview data are pretty tried and true technologies. This aspect of our investigation is designed to tell us what we can learn if we go after much higher resolution data. Structure from motion basically takes a bunch of aerial photographs from a drone or ground-based photographs and operates on a type of photogrammetry and develops a three-dimensional DEM. In this case, that DEM has roughly 3 orders of magnitude better horizontal resolution than the worldview data, from 200 centimeters down to about 2 centimeters, and about 1 order of magnitude improvement in the vertical accuracy compared to the LiDAR, from 20 centimeters down to about 2 centimeters. So it's an incredible data set. Obviously, we don't do this everywhere. We've been looking at a test area in Fort DeSoto in Pinellas County, Florida, where Tampa Bay Estuary has conducted some very detailed ecological studies. Next slide. So here's a comparison of the LiDAR data and the SFM data. You can see we've downsampled the SFM data a little bit. It's coming out at 4 or 5 centimeters horizontal resolution. But you can see there's a lot more detail than is available in the LiDAR data. There's some agreements and there's some areas of difference. Most of those differences reflect vegetation height. The LiDAR data has been processed to emphasize bare earth elevation, and the SFM basically takes pictures of the treetops and the tops of the grass. So we're looking at vegetation tops for the most part. There's a couple of other differences beyond vegetation growth. For example, there are some differences in the timing. The SFM data was collected in January of this year. The LiDAR data was collected over several years, about roughly a decade ago. And there's also some interesting differences related to the road surface, which we're investigating. It turns out that the road was repaved in between the LiDAR survey and the UAV survey. In the future, we hope to use these data to do a very detailed map of vegetation height and to start doing species identification down to the individual grass or trees. I think that's all I've got.
Thank you, Tim and Luis and Jim. So what we're planning to do now is to take these resources, the 2-meter resolution wetlands and land cover map, the topography map, and try to estimate biomass in different locations. This is going to be more finely tuned using the surface from motion type of data. If we can estimate the size of a tree in an area or several different bushes, it may provide a calibration spot for what type of wetland biomass we may estimate with the satellite LiDAR data. We want to also understand the different types of vegetation that may be associated with different topographies and assess which areas may be more prone to floods in a very high resolution map that we can work with decision makers and see if they can do land planning and urban planning a little bit more effectively. So the collaboration opportunities that we have are multiple. We are trying to put the data completely openly available through Google Earth Engine, through these applications, as you saw from Luis. We would like to also conduct biodiversity assessments over this entire large area and estimate what type of wetlands, what type of square kilometers we may have for a particular land class, and offer this experience that we have in processing such large data sets from different and multiple sensors for other biodiversity studies in other places. So we are open to collaborations. We look for people to work with us for large-scale mapping and assessments, and we are also open to share our experience in processing big data sets for biodiversity studies. Thank you. That concludes our presentation.